We can never talk enough about money, especially with this guy, Michael Carlin, the wealth management advisor, financial guru, Arizona Daily Mix money guy.
I'll take all of those.
So
They're all
many
perfect.
names.
Yes.
So let's talk about the big R word, retirement. How much do we need in retirement?
Okay, so the rule of thumb is that they'll say between 70 to 85% of your current income is what you'd expect to need in retirement.
Okay.
So rules of thumb are tough to follow. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to design your plan, but understand that as a baseline. We're thinking about, well, geez, in the future, do I need 100% of my income? It's interesting because every client that I ask, they all say that. They come in and they say, well, if I earn this, I'm going to need that in retirement. That's not necessarily the case.
Right. Okay. So is it the same rule of thumb for all pre-retirees, or is there another way to determine how much they'll need?
Yeah, so ultimately what I want everyone to do is to go through the process of calculating that retirement income need.
Okay.
It's individualized. So the first thing that you start with is what your current expenses are. And you take a real good hard look and you go through everything from the cable bill.
Be honest.
Be honest. Yes, use the real data. So that's really the first best step. The one thing that you would take out of that whole math equation is how much you're saving, because in retirement that would no longer be part of that math problem.
Right. Okay. So assess household living expenses. That's the first thing. Then consider housing changes. What does that mean?
So the big one is, am I going to stay in my current house living situation? Am I going to rent? Am I going to sell and try to buy two places? How is this going to look? The first thing you have to do is have that conversation, have that dialogue, and start to gain a greater understanding of what you want your housing situation to look like.
And by the way, we're having these discussions before you're retired.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Pre-retiree.
Absolutely.
Is there a rule of thumb as far as age when you should be having these realistic discussions?
Is there a rule of thumb? So this as soon as possible, because that best plan is going to be the one that you have the most time to save for.
Okay.
So as early as possible.
All right. So back to your rules of thumb. Factor in anticipated household changes.
Yes. So the big question here is my expenses are going to change in retirement. And the big one is food costs. Is that most retirees spend anywhere between 5 to 10% less on food than they do. And you think, well, I'm retired, maybe you're going out more.
Go out all the time.
That's typically not the case.
Okay.
In that there's a little bit more food bargain shopping happening, more time to cook, more time to prepare at home. So we see that those food costs go down. The only thing that can cancel that out is extra travel, cancels out the food savings.
Okay.
So that's all part of the math equation, and figuring out how much you want to travel in retirement.
Okay. Another big part of that equation is the healthcare costs, because the older we get, the higher they go.
Fidelity did a really great study, and it showed that an average couple spends $260,000, $250,000, for health care, not including long-term care costs.
That's crazy.
In retirement. It's a huge number. So as we're figuring this out, we got living expenses and housing expenses and dining out, all of that, and then health care is one that is going to add to that. We had some things that we're taking away. So we're starting to build that formula that's going to help us indicate, well, how much am I really going to need to spend in retirement?
Okay, that changes a lot.
It does.
Also, you throw in, add a fudge factor. What is a fudge factor? Because I don't think you're talking about chocolate.
I am. I frequently do, but in this case, I'm not. So what that is the roof is going to break. The refrigerator is going to go down. We're going to have problems, and so you're going to have some factor in there. And it's going to depend upon what kind of refrigerator and what kind of roof you have, what kind of home you live in. So you have to have some kind of number in there to say, well, here's the what if, right?
Okay.
Then you have all those components.
Right.
So you've added it all up, and then the final component is you get a plan that's going to take those numbers and work backwards. So then you know how much you need to save, how many years you have left to save it, and then you'll be able to factor out, what do I need to do in order to retire successfully.
Okay, and so the best way to design a plan is to obviously work with an expert.
Sure. There are some tools and things like that online, but what an expert should be able to bring to you is is the expertise going through that with other people and saying, well, here are some of the pitfalls, here are some things that you're missing, here's some things you might not be honest about or completely honest about.
Okay.
So
it's a tough thing.
It can be. So that's why you need to work with an expert to craft a plan that makes sense and start as soon as you can, so that you can make your own unique situation work for you.
All right, sounds good. ManageTheFunds.com is where folks can reach you. Thank you so much. Always good to see you, Michael
Good to see you,
Carlin.
too.
All right, we'll be right back.